Well, hello everybody, welcome to Robert's Train Set. I'd like to thank all my subscribers and my new subscribers, including one from Australia, that have got me up to 50 subscribers. I think the biggest subscriber to thank is obviously Alan from Dragon Junction. Without his shout and asking his supporters to have a look at my channel, I don't think I'd be anywhere near 50, so thank you for him, thank you very much. So, we've got some trains running behind. Nice Thompson L1 pulling a rake of maroon carriages. And also we've got a Class Black 5 pulling some old style goods wagons. You notice, if you can see them, they've got loads in, as have the hopper wagons, the rail freight hopper wagons being pulled by the 66. They've got limestone loads in them. So this video is partly a running session and partly how I made those loads, because I've made those. I've used Hattons Loads, i.e. the little jars you buy with 400 grams of whatever you want, coal, coke, in this case limestone, for the service, but the rest is made up of my usual, what's the name, cardboard. So hopefully you'll enjoy this. I've done this in two parts. I've done the first part making the base, the skeleton as you would have it, to put into the wagon, and then the second part will be on actually just doing the load itself, you know, the Hattons limestone or coke in this particular instance. So I hope you enjoy it, and there will be some trains running as well, so let's start, shall we? Right, so to start, get your piece of your card. What's important is, especially with this beer bottle stuff, it's corrugated. And what you want to do is you want to make sure the holes, so the holes on the top of this edge that you can hopefully see, are downwards, so the depth of what you want, because if you use the other way, it can crush, so you don't want to do that. So it is quite strong that way. So just measure, you've obviously measured the depth of your wagons, and as I say, the way I tend to do it is put a bit of card in, like so, put a bit of card in, put a line on it, and that's your depth. And it doesn't matter which ones you use, you do the same with these, and mark it for whatever one it is. And then what you need to decide is how far down you want. You've got to allow enough room for your load to go in, and also if you want undulations. So on my ones, I think I allow about probably 1/4 of an inch, something like that, 6mm. So just put a line on there, 6mm. You can measure it if you want, and then you can cut your bottom line. These are ones I did earlier. So just use that, or use this templates are a very good idea. You just cut a template and you just use that to cut everything the same, or as near as you can. So just mark your piece of card, each end. It doesn't have to be super accurate. It doesn't really matter. You are going to cut the top off a bit anyway. And if you want to, if you need more than one piece, which you probably will, just obviously mark it, so to speak. Then cut that through. I'm using a wood ruler, which aren't ideal because you can cut them, as you can see, but this is what I've got. I've got my metal ones up in the loft. And just cut through, don't force it. Make sure your blade is sharp, and when it gets, these are ideal because you can snip it off and get a new edge, and that's fine. And then you can just mark up what you need. I've already got mine cut, but you can mark it, and obviously you can do it like so, like that, and then you can reverse it. And out of a piece like this you'll get 3 diagonals really, and if you've got, you know, 6 or 7, put them all together, you know, like so. Put them all together, and then with your one marked on the top, and then you can just cut through the knot. It doesn't matter if they're a little bit skew with on the edges or whatever, because of the bevel you've put, you know, they're not going to go, it's not going to be too critical. The top bit is more critical, the bottom bit doesn't really matter. As long as it sits on your bearers, whatever you've got at the bottom, that's fine. So that's where you go. And then, as I said, you need to mark. It's better to have a bit more at the top, so that you can cut them. Do your centre line, measuring it at the top. Just measure your centre line. Probably a tape is better, or a steel rule, and mark it across. It doesn't have to be, it will help if it's reasonably accurate, but it doesn't have to be super accurate, because you can get away with it. So 55, because that's 105, 110, 55, and then mark it up. You can mark at the bottom if you want, or you can just sort of judge it like so, and then you've decided you're going to have that at the top. It depends how deep your trucks are and what you want to do with them, but you just mark that like so. Do that on all of them, and then you cut. I'll show you how I cut them, and you've got to remember to do them as pairs. So when you've cut your bits out and you've marked them up as I showed earlier, you end up with a line in the middle and a line in the middle with the little dash. What you've got to remember is not to do the cutout the same. So do a cutout from the top and notch that out. I don't know if you can see that. So cut down to the line like so. You don't have to measure the thickness, you can just sort of guess it really. It's not critical, as long as it's wide enough to get the other bit of cardboard through, that's fine. So you've done that. So when you do the other one, you must do the bottom bit. Yeah, the bottom bit. Okay. So as you can see, it's nowhere near accurate to the thickness, but you slide them together and they go in. And remember, you're going to do that to them to get them into the wagon. So a bit of looseness doesn't actually hurt, and then you're going to glue them along with your little bit of timber. Okay. So I can hear a bit of noise going on in the goods yard. Oh, what's that sound? I think something's about to emerge. So there are my 7 in this case, crosses if you like to call them, ready to be carried on with. The next operation is to decide what you want to cut the tops to the shape. So you can either have them dead straight like that, or you can cut them you know, so that you get heaps or humps or hollows or whatever. So I'll just do that on the board and then I'll show you what I've done. So when you've cut all these together, in essence you just want them just sitting there with those points there no wider than the opening here, i.e. that, with a little bit of tolerance. So you don't want to be dead tight, a little bit of tolerance. And the idea is to put a little bit of card in there to keep them together, because obviously because they're squared they want to open up. So you can just do that, and what I tend to do is do a little measurement if you can, and usually I stick them where the angle comes there. So when you decide, cut your card. In this case it's about 10mm, but obviously other trucks will be different. These are quite difficult, I mean, because they're sloping and whatever, but the whole idea of this is that they will come out. So whatever. So the first thing I do is, I've obviously got it like that, mark, just put a little line where you're going to put it, because it is so easy to get confused and glue the wrong bit. So keep them together, mark a little line on there. It doesn't have to be, doesn't really matter, these are not, it's not ultra critical, it's not going to be all absolutely spot on thing. Now the other thing you want to do before you glue those in is, if you want to not have a straight flat load, which you could by just leaving that, at this stage it's easier to push them together like that and do whatever you want to do. So if you want 2 bulges, just cut off like so, holding it fairly firmly and being careful, and a new blade helps, or just chip the end off of that, which is what I did. And you can do that, and this is why we left a bigger margin at the top than we did at the bottom, in reason, so that you've got something to play with. So you can do that, and you can always leave it flat there if you want. It doesn't really matter if it doesn't actually completely line up, because when you stick the board on the card on top, it'll be a bit maybe sloping, which, you know, probably is the case in real life. So you've got that there. So get your 2 pieces that you're going to do, and as I say, it's not ultra critical. I'll explain why later on. Bit of glue on here, up there. Doesn't take an awful lot, and glue that in there. You can, if you want, if you've taken a big chunk out the top, you can at this stage sort of mark the this bit of board, this little 10mm bit of board, and cut it off either level or even a bit under. It doesn't really matter. So I have that sitting there. And then obviously this is why I say keep it together, because you want to make sure you stick this bit on the right part. And it's so, I've done it when I first started, I stuck it on the wrong edge. It's easily done, especially with my limited brain power. Little fiddly, as you can see, and obviously it probably doesn't stick as well to the shiny side as it does to the flat side, the matte side. Anyway, there we are. Okay, at this stage, just take them apart. Keeping hold of that one, and a little bit of glue here. Bit of glue there, bit of glue the other side. And then to save having to put this down, if you can get a bit of glue up there. Slide it back in again. And then obviously you need to put a bit of glue, probably easier actually, just up there like that. And then obviously up there like so. And then it's a simple matter of just hopefully bringing them together, lining that up with that. Try and line up with the bottom a bit. And this is where you could do with 2 pairs of hands sometimes, as we always know. And then really just hold them there for a couple of seconds. In my case, because I'm very impatient most of the time, although I do have patience, I don't think you do this without a little bit of patience. What you can do is you can just put that on those two like so, and a little weight maybe just to hold them on, if it will. Elastic bands would probably do the same, or even some very not very strong cramps, you know, just to hold it there to let it go off. So there we are, and what you end up with is not very pretty, I agree, but you know, this is not going to be seen. You can see your slope there. Now that will fit in. As you can see, it's loose there. It doesn't matter if it's loose or tight. That one is now a bit tight, but you're going to stick a bit of card on top, and you can bring it in to the width of the card, and that'll be fine. And then that'll drop in there, and you know. Right. It's gone off a bit. Take your weights off, that you saw in the picture, and you've got your little skeleton really. If you haven't trimmed it off, as you see I haven't here because I'm too impatient, small pair of scissors, excuse me, small pair of scissors, and you can just V it in like so, if you can see that. So just angle it down and down again, put it off and clear it all. There we are. And then you've got it fairly straight and level, ready for your card when you want to do it. But as you can see, it's fairly Heath Robinson. It's nothing posh, you know, it's just a skeleton to put your load on. It is fairly solid that way, which is why I said do the corrugations as I've done them, and that's all you do. So we're getting there. I've done 3 so far. I've got a few more to do, which I'll get on with, and then we'll get to the next stage. So we now have the 7 skeletons that I need. Obviously this was the one I did as a sample to try and see how it goes, and as you can see they do come out and there it is. So here we are, just push it in and line it up, and that's it. I've done 2 here that have got a straight top on them because, okay, you probably wouldn't get that in real life, but so what? Just to show you how strong they are, I've got a 2 pound weight here, 2 pounds. And as you can see, it easily takes their weight. Now I think if you made it out the other way, it would tend to crush it. Okay? So for the next part, we need to put the top on. So the top layer that the load is going to go on. This is where we change. We don't. We're going to dispense with the beer bottle, and we can use pizza, Weetabix, or even cornflakes, or even your tea thing. Now actually this is probably better, and I suspect maybe that is better than these 2. These are reasonably stiff. These are not quite so stiff. And as you want to contour it to the shape, it's probably better if you've got something that's fairly flexible. And also, it's good if it's got a picture, a shiny surface, because when you do your glue to hold the load in, it obviously won't be, it won't go too soggy perhaps, which it might do on that side. So this is where you start needing to get a little bit accurate, not absolutely super accurate, but this bit is important. You need to measure the width. Now I know we've got the width on there with a little bit of give. That probably wouldn't hurt, but it wants to be reasonably as snug as you can. Not tight. It must have, you know, it must be able to come out easy. So I'm going to cut some of those. You don't need to see me how I cut them. Again, just measure it, cut a straight line and measure back and then cut. And as always, try and do enough for the whole lot because you're doing one operation. So I shall see you when I've done that. So I've cut 8 strips as it happens, because that's how many I could get out of the pizza box. Get 2 lengths out of each length there, so cut them up. And I've cut them longer, I've left them longer. The simple fact, A, you're going over a shape, and B, you just want to sort of play with it when you've got it stuck on. So there we are, all ready to go. As you can see, it sits in there quite neatly. As I say, a little gap doesn't matter, because when we come to put the load in, it should take that up. In fact, we'll probably even have to sort of just sand it down a bit so that it is come in and out, like that one does. So the next operation is simply to glue these on. Now, as I said, we know that that fits in between, so if we glue that on and just bend them so that they're in line, that will be fine. So you obviously need a nice bit of glue. Now I found it was easier if you've got a shape, just to ease it a bit to the shape before you glue, like so, maybe even a little bit there. So if you put it on there and just get your pencil or your thing and just mark it a little bit and mark it a little bit, and then just shape it a bit like so, it does help, because even though it's thin card, it is still fairly stiff. And what I'm hoping to do is when you get the glue on, have some elastic bands. You can just elastic band it round it and hopefully it'll hold it on. Don't have to be dead on, obviously. If there's gaps in between, you'll never see it. You'll never see it, as long as it's stuck. So next job is to put some glue on and get our shaped piece and start sticking. So it would obviously pay to put an elastic band around the middle to hold it on. Smaller elastic bands would probably help. But anyway, that's on there, and then bring that out, push it against, and then we just need one hopefully there. So there we are. I could do with a little bit more here in the middle. Might be difficult. And there we are. So I've just put some extra glue in the seam. Probably a good idea not to try and get it on your elastic bands. Don't know how well it would stick. And what we need to do now is just let that dry and let it go off thoroughly before we start doing any more work. So I'm going to now do the rest, and I'll come back to you when we've done them all. Right, so I've glued all of these up, and as you can see the elastic bands. You might notice that it's curved. It's sort of the elastic bands have curved it. So whip your elastic bands off. It's a lot easier getting them off than it is getting them on. If you haven't got a ready supply of elastic bands, masking tape would do. You know, just stick a little bit round and that suffices. In fact, I think the first one I probably did do that, but the elastic bands work really well as long as you've got a nice supply of elastic bands. They're not exactly expensive, are they? So as you can see, this is all round, but all you need to do literally is straighten it out. And when you put your loads in with the glue, it stiffens everything up. It doesn't necessarily matter if it's a little bit curved, because it'll give you a bit more contour on your load, won't it? But you don't want them too curved, because obviously it's making it narrower, which technically speaking you don't really want. So the next bit is a bit of a, it's not a complete science. What you actually want them to do is to sit in there on the two bottom bits, with the load obviously sitting here. It's not ultra critical. So in fact, if you've got a little gap at the ends, it will help with the next stage. So it's technically speaking, if that line was hitting the slope inside, you would cut it there, but because you've trimmed them, that isn't always the case. So just by freehand cut, and obviously cut the excess off of that, leave a bit on, try not to break the glue joint, as I nearly did just now. I think that wasn't glued there, that's just a bit steep. That angle I cut there is a bit steep. It won't matter, it'll stay there. And then try it in your truck, in your wagon, right, and sort of try it, and you can sort of feel that that isn't in essence sort of sitting at the bottom. Give it a shake, comes out easy enough, not too bad. So just trim a bit more off, not too much, just, you know, a 1/16 here and a 1/16 there, or a mil if you're into mils. Each end perhaps. Let's just do another little bit there and see how we go. Now if you can see that is sort of sliding thing where it's hitting on here and not sitting at the bottom. So we need a little bit more. So in this particular case it looks as though where the ends are is probably where it wants to be. Hopefully. Right. So bearing in mind where your bearers are, which are sort of where those lines are, you push that down, yeah, that is sitting on them. There's a little gap here and a little gap there. Well done for staying this long. These are the loads we're going to use in the next part of this to actually make the load that you see. So see you later on. To let you know, there is an outside. Model railways have always feel mostly inside. It's a garden, lovely. When I come out here, we've got the sun out, it's about 18 degrees. And just say, I think, you know, 50 subscribers is a milestone. 50 subscribers is a milestone, especially for my channel, as you know. So I'm going to do I called it a special. It's not really. I'm not giving anything away or anything like that. You know, I'm a pensioner. But I just thought I'd do, you know, a special video to mark this occasion. So it will be a little while. I've got the one that you've just seen, obviously, to edit and get out. So there'll be a bit of a while. Anyway, hopefully you look forward to that, and hope you'll like it. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to cut the grass around this Easter time, but there we are, got to be done. Lovely daisies. Cheers, bye bye.